The average Egyptian's day began early. They were a deeply religious people who believed in the sun god, Ra, and they started their day with his rising. Most people lived in mud brick houses, simple but efficient for the hot, arid climate of the Nile Valley. These homes were often shared by extended families, including grandparents, parents, children, and sometimes even cousins. Upon waking, Egyptians would perform basic hygiene, which included rinsing their mouths and washing their hands. Since access to water was plentiful due to the Nile, cleanliness was important, though full-body baths were rarer. They didn't have soap as we know it, but used a form of natron, a natural salt, for cleaning. Men typically wore a simple loincloth or kilt made from linen, while women wore long, fitted dresses that reached their ankles. Linen, made from the flax plant, was the most common fabric due to its breathability. For those who could afford it, clothing could be adorned with jewelry, and some used oils or ointments to moisturize their skin in the harsh desert climate. Both men and women took pride in their appearance, often wearing wigs, especially for formal events or religious ceremonies. Makeup was important too, especially kohl eyeliner, which was used not only for aesthetics but also to protect their eyes from the sun. The bold black eye makeup became iconic, and traces of it are still visible on statues and tomb paintings. Women, and sometimes men, wore scented oils or perfumes. The Nile River was the lifeblood of ancient Egypt, providing not only water but fertile soil for growing food. The average Egyptian ate a diet rich in bread and beer, staples made from barley and emmer wheat. Beer was their main beverage, and it was thick, nutrient-rich, and far less alcoholic than modern versions. Bread was made daily, but the flour often contained sand from the grinding stones, which wore down their teeth over time. Vegetables like onions, leeks, garlic, and cucumbers were common, along with fruits like figs, dates, and grapes. Meat was less common, reserved for wealthier individuals or special occasions. Most people ate fish from the Nile or raised livestock like chickens, ducks, and geese. Honey, their primary sweetener, was a luxury item, though date syrup was a more common alternative. The majority of Egyptians were farmers or laborers. Life centered around the annual flooding of the Nile, the inundation, which deposited rich silt on the fields. This fertile soil allowed for the growing of crops like wheat, barley, and flax, as well as vegetables. Farmers worked hard during the growing season, ploughing fields with oxen or hand tools and tending to crops. During the flood season, many men would work on construction projects commissioned by the pharaoh, including the famous pyramids and temples. This was a form of taxation known as corvée labor, and while demanding, it was also a source of pride, as these structures were not only monuments to the gods, but also to the kingdom's greatness. For those not working in agriculture, trades such as pottery, weaving, and jewelry making were common. Artisans held an esteemed position in society, creating goods for both practical use and religious rituals. Scribes, although few, were highly respected as they were literate, and the skill of writing was rare and valuable. Merchants and traders bartered goods, traveling along the Nile or even outside Egypt to acquire resources like cedarwood, gold, and lapis lazuli. Religion was deeply intertwined with every aspect of an ancient Egyptian's life. They believed in a pantheon of gods, each responsible for different aspects of nature and human experience. These gods had to be appeased through offerings and rituals to ensure harmony in both life and the afterlife. The average person would visit a local temple to leave offerings of food, drink, or flowers to the gods. Temples were not just religious sites, but also economic centers. Priests played a crucial role, conducting daily rituals on behalf of the people to keep the gods satisfied. Ordinary people did not typically enter the inner sanctums of temples. Only priests and pharaohs could approach the statues of the gods, but they participated in festivals and processions, which were lively events. Death and the afterlife were central to Egyptian belief. The concept of ma'at, or cosmic balance and order, shaped how Egyptians viewed life. Upon death, one's heart was weighed against the feather of ma'at. If it was lighter, the soul could enter the afterlife. If heavier, it was devoured by a monstrous creature called Amit. In the evenings, the family gathered for meals, often outside in courtyards to escape the heat of their homes. Dinner usually consisted of bread, beer, and whatever vegetables, fruit, or fish they had on hand. As the sun set, the land cooled, and people would spend time talking, playing simple board games like Senet, or telling stories about gods and pharaohs. Families were close-knit, and children were seen as a blessing. The young helped with household tasks and were educated in basic skills. Most children followed in their parents' footsteps, with boys learning their father's trade and girls learning domestic skills from their mothers. At night, Egyptians would sleep on woven mats or wooden beds, covered by linen sheets. Houses were built with small windows to let in the breeze, but mosquito nets or curtains were used to protect from insects. With their belief in life after death, many Egyptians placed small amulets or charms under their pillows to ensure good dreams and protection. Life wasn't all work. There were frequent religious festivals throughout the year. These events were filled with music, dancing, and food. Egyptians loved music, and they used instruments like harps, flutes, drums, and sistrums, a type of rattle, during these festivities. Dancing was considered a form of worship, particularly for women, who performed ritual dances. Beer flowed freely during festivals, and people played games or engaged in mock battles and races. These occasions were times for both spiritual renewal and communal bonding, offering a brief respite from the rigors of daily life. The concept of death and eternity shaped the average Egyptian's outlook. They believed strongly in preparing for the afterlife, even from a young age. The wealthier Egyptians could afford elaborate tombs, but even the poorest made efforts to ensure they would be properly buried. Many had modest tombs decorated with depictions of their life and hopes for the afterlife, as they believed they would need to show the gods that they had lived a virtuous life. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know what you thought down below.